Hello! Welcome to another episode of Expose Evergreen. Though for this episode, we're going to drop the diacritic mark over the second E and return it to the original Expose Evergreen. And by Expose Evergreen, I mean thoroughly expose. This is from the February issue of the Cooper Point Journal, which is Evergreen's attempt at having a newspaper. Though there are certain standards that they really wrestle with when it comes to grammar and spelling, and even page layout here. Evergreen has been the provider of several cultural icons. We have the guy that was Kramer in Seinfeld. You have Matt Groening from The Simpsons. You have Macklemore from Macklemore. You have Benjamin Boyce from the Whatever I'm Doing. And now you have Bailey Coates. I'm going to read her little write-up here. Bailey Coates is an illustrator and photographer in their senior year at Evergreen. They've been drawing since they were a child, but their photography practice has been a recent discovery due to an accidental class enrollment at Evergreen. Their illustrative work focuses on the themes of animals and furry subculture, while their photography is thinking about themes of sexuality and the uncomfortability of having a body. I don't think you can be comfortable without a body either. That's the problem with bodies. They're both comfortable and uncomfortable. It's what you get. They've developed a professional practice where people on the internet will pay them in order to receive furry fandom art from them. It's extremely businesslike for them. That is a wonderful sentence. It's extremely businesslike for them. We're going to skip ahead. Their current project is to think about the sometimes scary aspects of having a body and what that involves when having sex. Well, you can't have sex without a body, and you can't be scared without a body either. Unless there's some sort of transcendental realm of fear that transpires for the disembodied. Scary bad, while simultaneously scary good. For them, this involves creating still life images that don't involve the human figure at all. What I see on this page is the figure of a human woman riding the figure of a beta male, the figure of a male man chopping away at his penis. And then there's a furry, so I guess the furry is covered over with another body. And then the figure of two women, well, I would assume a woman because there's a vulva right there. One of the women is licking poop off of the butt of another woman. This means using suggestive material like rubber hosing, animal parts, fake hair, stretchy vinyl, warped plexiglass, animal blood, etc. Something they've constantly been aware of in their work is the reception that they are only trying to be shocking and edgy using these explicit themes, such as face sitting, clit rubbing, dick chopping, beta man riding, poop licking. This isn't their goal. Instead, hey, aspire to be funny, gross, uncomfortable, and scary. So not shocking, but gross and scary. There is a huge spectrum, maybe they meant speculum, of emotions that people feel around having sex, and they're all equally interesting and motivating for Bailey. Their final project for last quarter involved a series of 35mm photographs in which they took a few of their friends to the cheapest motel room they could find in Fife, and shooting incredibly explicit images in this explicitly sleazy, pornographic environment replete with cigarette ashes on the floor and in the toilet, etc. This was important for them to push boundaries and try new things. Examples include using chocolate cake to replicate a shit fetish, pissing in the sink, ooh, that's edgy, masturbation in a dedicated sleazy place, etc. Over the last year, they have been working on, over the last year, they having been working on getting more acquainted with the technical aspects of photography and experimenting with different formats, moving from 35mm to medium format using studio flashes, and becoming more comfortable with their work and dismissing comments about their work that would ostensibly be seen as edgy or wild. Hold on. They want to be funny, gross, uncomfortable, and scary, but not edgy, or shocking, or wild. All right, whatever. If they had an enormous budget, their fantasy art project is to construct an elaborate environment and having a large scene involving group sex. The sly is the limit. I don't know if that's intentional or not, because this isn't sly at all, but I think the writer was trying to be clever. Sally Lynn. And this is called an interview by Sally Lynn. It's not an actual interview. They don't talk at all. I guess, maybe this whole like dropping the pronoun thing to go to they is also dropping any quotation marks. Just everything becomes the themocracy of prose. To continue, the sly is the limit. Something that involves a lot of people with sex happening in a beautiful place. In the studio, most of the work they do they feel is pretty basic. Simply dodging and burning and having a range of values in terms of lightness and darkness. Intimate. That's a full sentence. Intimate. Bailey is very much into a black and white aesthetic, emphasizing the aesthetic values of the medium. Personally, they hide behind the camera. Semicolon. They don't like to be photographed. The main idea they are working on right now is the existential questions around sex and death. Ever since their cat died when they were 5, they have been concerned with the question of death. Now, my question to you, Bailey Coates, is also what inspired your obsession with sex. Or maybe it was something the cat did before they died. Or maybe it involves how the cat died. The sly is the limit. Their advice for the kids is to do whatever the capital F fuck you want and to pursue whatever you are obsessed about. You just do that, guys. Okay, so what do you do with this? What do you do with this when this is on the stand of a college with a preschool on it? I mean, is this free speech? And this is from the college that invites speakers to town to say who can and who cannot have free speech. Well, white men are not allowed to have free speech, but everybody else is allowed to have whatever speech they want. Now, that's a very mild criticism. It's very easy. Like, well, is this pushing the boundaries of free speech? Well, is putting facts on a wall that say exactly how the black American population is dying, those were all torn down. That was not considered free speech, but this is considered free speech. The interesting question, and if you need to know why I'm dressed like this, is because I'm just finally embracing my patriarchy, though not completely. I need to hide behind something here. What's a bias nowadays if it's not implicit? If a safe space is made around a college, right? That safe space is to protect the students from certain things, but not from others, right? It's to protect the students from outside ideas, but not from inside ideas. It's not to protect the students from themselves, no, or from each other, no. It's to protect students from ideas. And I bring that up because this guy, the current president of Evergreen State College, he wrote this nice little essay to the Seattle Times that was published on August 29th, 2016, at the beginning of the school year that would end in a huge, tremendous, riotous rupture of everything that we hold value with regards to civil discourse. Anyways, this opinion piece that he wrote was why students need trigger warnings and safe places. Yes, this article is a polemic against the Chicago principles, presumably because they're mobster-esque and they're freedom-loving grubbery. I'm going to read a few pieces from this. The University of Chicago's recent welcome to its incoming class wasn't welcoming. The message, conveyed in a letter from the Dean of Students, revealed a profound indifference to concerns that many students now bring to colleges and universities. Yet how colleges and universities respond to these concerns often proves critical to the success of students and to the freedom of faculty in educating an increasingly diverse student body. The dean's letter, there's a link, gave notice that the university rejects the value of warning students about material in some classes, presentations, or debates that may prove offensive or psychologically harmful, so-called trigger warnings. I don't know about you, but if somebody is taking what appears to be wire cutters to a penis, that is a little triggering to me. But that probably has to do with my inability to let go of that seat of my own masculinity. Either the university is completely tone deaf to the academic and developmental needs of many students, or is launching its own counterattack on what it perceives as an unwarranted assault of political correctness on campus, or both. In each instance, trigger warnings can alert students to genuinely distressing content that could otherwise cripple their learning, such as a face being mashed by a big, hairy pair of buttocks. Colleges and universities must change as the society changes. I guess this is a form of change when a newspaper, a school newspaper that is distributed where there are children moving around, can have a woman furiously grasping her cunny. No, I'm sorry. Let's put it another way. Have a woman gently caressing her labia. Colleges and universities must change as society changes. And unlike 10 or 20 years ago, schools must now acknowledge and address issues they have largely ignored in the past. Sexual violence. I should have saved the penis cutting for earlier, but let's move on to the beta male writing. The impact of war experiences on veterans returning to college and the mental health challenges faced by increasing numbers of students. Imagine a rape survivor entering a class in which sexual violence is the subject of academic debate, or a veteran just returning from a combat assignment suffering from acute post-traumatic stress syndrome, anxiety, or depression in a classroom where accounts of a war are disputed. These students can make critically important contributions to their classrooms, but if we refuse to acknowledge that they also have unique barriers to participating in that discussion... Okay. Shut up, Siri. But if we refuse to acknowledge that they also have unique barriers to participating in that discussion, we send the message that they are not welcome. As a lifelong educator, I have witnessed firsthand the negative impact that reliving personal trauma in a classroom can have on a student's academic performance. Indifference to such traumas diminishes a student's likelihood of success. A simple warning about troubling content acknowledges blah, 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 blah. Ironically, the University of Chicago's welcoming message is, in itself, a trigger warning to students. The campus offers no safe spaces or warnings about potentially offensive or harmful content in its curricula or its programs. So let's try to be smart about this. Anyhow, so this is the thing. George Bridges doesn't want to provide a place where free speech is open to all. He wants to provide a place where certain people can speak and certain people cannot speak about certain things, right? So that's what he wants. He wants to create a safe space. But how can he possibly control his students? We see time and again, from the protests to this stuff, that he has no ability to actually control what the students do. He has no ability to put his foot down. His energy is all about, one, keeping his own job safe, two, making sure his legacy is safe, and then three, flouting this whole social justice agenda that says one thing and does another, that proposes to be a safe place, but in fact doesn't have the cojones, does not have the authority to put its foot down, like a true patriarch would, and say, this is acceptable, this is unacceptable. He is unable to say what is acceptable or not acceptable, other than saying that everybody that is a bigot, according to our view of the world, is unacceptable. But anybody who claims to be Antifa or claims to be on our side or whatever, they can do whatever the F they want with complete infamy. So, you know what? I'm going to have to put this episode up on BitchUt, or BitchUt. So you guys can see these pictures without me getting flagged. I'll go through and censor these images. And Or maybe I won't. See what happens. Because they are pretty low res. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. When you start to put clamps down on academic rigor, when you start to put down these rules that regulate judgment, not to a critical faculty, but to an obvious faculty, what you do is you dumb down discourse, right? They're making, I want to make this causal connection or this correlative connection between utter abandon, utter immorality, and this utter morality that is puritanical in its tonality, right? So they want to go around and say that white men are bad, Republicans are bad, everybody who disagrees with us is a Nazi. You know, they want to do that and cast all the evil way over there and diminish all nuance. But then when evil is right here, when evil is in your actual house, they're completely blind to it. And they're unable to actually foster a nuanced discussion. So I don't have any problems with the pornography. I actually don't want little children exposed to this, because it is rather violent in certain ways that I think is completely unsuiting to a place of higher education. This is the lowest form of art. This is the lowest form of education. And because they've cut off ties to nuance, this is the result. I'm going to propose that this is the result. This is the other side of tyranny. Those who are protected by tyranny are utterly decadent because they don't need to be critical of themselves. All that criticality is pointed outwards. Hope you have a good weekend. Cheerio.